Welcome to another podcast. Today I have Steve Lattin with me, and Steve is, he's currently retired, but he was in the NHL as a trainer and equipment manager, as well as, I'm sure, other roles or things. So that's just a very quick intro. Steve, welcome, and maybe you can fill in some of the gaps as far as what was your role in hockey in general.
Absolutely. Well, to start, I started at the core bottom of the NHL. You know, everybody wants to know how you start, how you got in it. I got in it by luck. And in 1980, Detroit Red Wings, they were shorthanded, and they needed some help in the dressing room. And a good friend of mine, Jim Rutherford, brought me in and introduced me to the Red Wings head equipment manager, Dan Olsevich, who actually jump-started my career and saw things in me that I didn't even see in myself. And he took me under his wing, and I just followed this man wherever he went. You know, the old saying, you keep your mouth shut and your ears open. Well, I'm a prime example of that. That's what I did. And I didn't know anything about how anything ran in the dressing room per se, but I sure did learn. I mean, I knew how to turn on the washer, and I knew how to turn on the dryer and the vacuum, and that's where it started.
Mm-hmm. So 1980, you just pretty much like jumped right into NHL.
Just jumped. Yeah, I got lucky. I had someone who had an in for me, and I got lucky. I can't say it any other way. I got lucky.
Yeah,
I was at the right place at the right time.
Nice. What was your background before that? Did you play hockey? Were you in hockey
No,
at all? Or
no, I played sports in high school, football, basketball, and baseball at Dearborn Fortson, and I loved to watch hockey, but didn't skate. I couldn't skate, but I just took a liking to it. You know, there's something that you gravitate to, and that's what I gravitated to.
Mm-hmm. And if you don't mind me asking, how old were you at the time in 1980?
Well, I'm 71 now, so what was I?
Yeah.
Do the math.
Yeah, that's right.
Do the math.
So maybe if we could backtrack a little bit even further, like back to your high school days, who were you like in high school? Like, were you a very social kind of a kid?
Oh, yeah.
Or
Yeah, no. I was a very social kid. Loved to talk to people, loved to talk about sports. But hockey was just something. Hockey and basketball and football were three sports that I loved watching. And you know, I can't say enough. I just got lucky.
Mm-hmm. Did you grow up in the Detroit area?
I grew up in Dearborn, just outside Detroit. And great place to grow up. Great place, great family town. Home of Henry Ford, Ford Motor Company. My dad worked at Ford's. It was a great upbringing there.
Mm-hmm. And then as far as 1980, when you just started, that's when Miracle on Ice happened as well. How familiar were you with that at the time?
At the time, very. Oh, yeah, very. I remember that game wasn't on TV. You just got a score. But very. And you know what? The crazy part with that whole Miracle on Ice was being a kid growing up in Dearborn and being more or less a hockey fanatic. People that were the big names with the hockey, the Miracle on Ice, that team itself, I ended up working with those people. That's how crazy that was. I worked with Herbie Brooks, and I worked with Craig Patrick.
Mm-hmm. So that's really interesting. But at the time, you didn't attend the game or anything like that, did you?
Which game is that?
The one between Soviet Union. And
No. That was in upstate New York. No.
Okay. So you got started with Detroit Red Wings in 1980. What was that like in the beginning, working there?
It was more or less a dream come true for me. You know, I always wondered what went on in that dressing room in between periods, and next thing you know, I was just thrown in it, and it was either feast or famine.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how it was.
How long did you stay with Red Wings?
I was with Detroit for 6 years.
Okay. And what was your kind of responsibility as far as what were you
I
doing?
knew how the vacuum worked. And it was a big dressing room, but I knew how the vacuum worked, and I knew how the washer and dryer worked. I didn't even skate sharpening. I didn't even look at a skate sharpener until the head equipment manager with Detroit started teaching me more and more and more and more. But my main duties were folding towels, vacuuming the floor, and doing the laundry.
Mm-hmm.
Hanging equipment.
So you spent there 6 years. What happened after that? Did you go to a different team?
I went to, when we were in Detroit, I mean, our team was bad at the time, really bad. The season started in October, early October. We were out of the playoffs by Halloween. That's how bad we were. Mm. And as time went on, they make changes. If you don't win, they make changes, and that's just how pro sports are. Doesn't matter how good a job you do. If a new guy comes in, he wants to make a change, they're going to make a change. That's it. So they made a change, and I ended up going to Hartford for 2 years.
Okay. So, like, for me, I play hockey now, but and I grew up more like in the 90s. So even then, I didn't like. A friend of mine was really into NHL, so he knew all the names. I didn't really know much. Even now, like, I don't watch it as much, so I'm not too familiar with all the names. But so for you, during that time in Detroit, was I don't know when Wayne Gretzky played. Was that before that or after that?
No, he played then. Yeah, he played then.
So what was your kind of observation of him like at the time?
Phenomenal. When that team came in, I mean, our team in Detroit wasn't the best, but when that Oiler team came in, mm-hmm. You were just trying to keep it below 10 goals they score. You know, I mean, they were just an awesome team. They were a machine. They were just a machine. They were a team that came out. They were just it was a team full of all-stars when you look back on them. And Wayne, he's a phenomenal player. Phenomenal. Great guy. Phenomenal guy. Just had time for everybody. I don't know how he did it. I mean, I see him to this day right now. He's the same person, has time for everybody. And I can attest to that because he had time for me when he didn't have to.
Mm-hmm. So was he at his prime at that time? Like, how long if you recollect, how long has he been in the league at that time?
You know what? I'm thinking like 79, 78. I think he was in there like 5 or 6 years by then. Mm-hmm. You know, and that Oiler team, they were just coming around and starting to win their Stanley Cups because at that time, the Islanders were making their run of 4 straight. And then Edmonton came and they took over.
Mm-hmm. Who else was part of that team?
With time? Edmonton?
No, I mean with Wayne.
With Wayne, yeah. With Wayne, be Paul Coffey. I ended up having Paul Coffey in Pittsburgh. Grant Fuhr. I didn't have Grant Fuhr as a player, but he coached in the 3-on-3 ice that I've worked the last few years here. Man, Chuck Huddy. They were just stacked. Andy Moog. They were just Glenn Anderson, Mark Messier. I mean, just a stacked team, stacked.
Mm-hmm. What as far as the players versus the coach, what was that interaction like, and how much credit would you put towards the coach versus the players for?
Well, Glenn Sather, he used to play in the NHL, and he was their coach with John Muckler. But he had the horses, you know. If you have the horses, you open up the door and you let the horses run. But then when you have to crack the whip on the horses, you know, you got to crack the whip on them. I mean, you let them run, but you have to know when to bring them back in. And Glenn Sather, he did a phenomenal job with that group.
Mm-hmm. So then after Detroit, you mentioned you went to Hartford. I guess remind me or enlighten me better, better stated. Was that part of NHL or was that was
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Where was Hartford?
They were in Connecticut, Hartford,
Okay.
Connecticut.
Okay.
They played in the arena. It was like a mall, and the arena sat in the mall.
Okay.
And I loved it there. I had a great time there. Met some great people there.
Are they? So I'm familiar with Bruins.
They're down the road.
Okay.
They were right down the road from Boston.
Okay. So and Hartford is still around today?
Hartford moved
Okay.
to Carolina.
Maybe that's why I don't remember.
Yeah, Hartford moved to Carolina.
Okay. So they became the Hurricanes
Correct.
over time.
Correct.
Okay. Interesting. So how long did you stay there?
I stayed there for 2 years.
And what was your experience like there?
It was tremendous. Hartford was a small town, great restaurants, great people, insurance capital. The players I had, I was just at the right place at the right time with that team, and they were a team that they were young and they were growing, and I had the likes of Ronnie Francis, Dean Evison, Dave Tippett, Mike Liute. I mean, I could go on, and John Anderson. I could go on and on with these guys. They took me more or less under their wing, and I was at the right place at the right time with that organization.
Mm-hmm.
It's a place I didn't want to leave, believe me.
No.
To this day, I didn't want to leave.
So what happened there after 2 years? Was it also like a change of people? Or
No. My contract was up, and I wanted to stay in Hartford, but when it came down to the money aspect of it, that's part of the game too. And I had a discussion with Emil Francis, who was the general manager of the team at the time, and as far as I knew, everything was set to go for another 2-year deal. And at the last minute, he decided to go in another direction. But what, unbeknownst to anybody, I had a meeting with Mr. Francis on a certain date, and I had a phone call from Tony Esposito, who was the GM of the Pittsburgh Penguins at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they were looking for somebody. And he made me an offer I couldn't refuse, more or less to say. And I just picked up and left Hartford, and it was the greatest thing I ever did.
So transitioning to the Penguins, with the team back in 90 to 91 and 91 to 92, they won the Stanley Cup.
Correct.
Right, those two years. What was it like working there? If you were to, in some ways, compare, let's say, Detroit Red Wings, wrong sport, to the Penguins, what was it like? I mean, at one point you were starting, so you're just learning the
Correct.
trade and so on. At the other one, you had some experience. But what was working like at the Penguins?
It was like a good friend of mine, Harry Neal, always told me. He was my coach in Detroit I had him for like a year and a half. And, I never knew what winning was like in the NHL because all we did was lose in Detroit at that time. And, we had drafted Steve Eisman finally, but they finally were making the turn, per se, bringing in, you have to build through the draft. And finally, Jimmy Devellano, he decided that's the way he was going to go. And he drafted Stevie Y, first pick, third pick actually, and the change started in Detroit. But talking with Harry Neal, I always asked Harry, like, what's it like to win, because he was in Vancouver,
Mm-hmm.
and they won in Vancouver, and he just told me, he says it's something that you'll always remember, but you just have to be at the right place at the right time. And my question was, where's the right place and when's the right time?
Yeah.
And he said, "You'll know." And then when Tony Esposito offered me the job in Pittsburgh, I had an understanding with Harry. If something came down the line for me, I was going to call him, because at that time he was working for Hockey Night in Canada, and he saw these teams play. So I picked up the phone, I called him, and all he said on the phone, he never mentioned my name. He just said, "What team?" I said, "Pittsburgh." He said, "Hang the phone up and tell Tony you'll take the job, because if they make a couple trades and better their team, they could win the Stanley Cup." That's just what he told me. And with that, I picked up the phone, called Tony, and said, I'll take the job.
Yeah.
So I knew what I was getting into in Pittsburgh, because they had Mario Lemieux at the time. The pieces were in place. They just had to add more pieces to the puzzle
to make it a winning team.
Make it a winning team.
What was the starting lineup for those years?
Oh, geez. Well, I mean, when I got there, I had Dan Quinn. I had, of course, Mario. Paul Coffey was there. So the pieces were there. It's just that when they made a GM change and they brought Craig Patrick in, is when the puzzle he started really putting the pieces into the puzzle.
And during that time, what kind of other responsibilities did you pick up as far as your work?
Well, it was more or less, now being the head guy there, it was more or less your minor league team, overseeing your minor league team on, their wants and needs, number one. Then you had your team. And back then, we didn't have 3 or 4 assistants. We had me. And we had a guy by the name of A.T. Caggiano, who has been there from day one. And he was more or less like he worked game nights. And that's it. It was me. Everything fell on my shoulders. So, you're either going to sink or swim, and it worked out well.
So did you take care of their uniforms, their sticks, their skates?
Everything. Order anything. I always used to tell people, anything you see them wear, I ordered it. Sticks, I ordered it. Skates, gloves, jerseys, pants, socks, A to Z.
What was, as far as each individual player, how picky or how not picky were the players?
You would think that the biggest superstar, and that was Mario Lemieux, would be the pickiest person in the world. Completely different. All you had to do is get it right with him, and that was it. That's just, he didn't want. A lot of these guys don't like change. They don't like change. They don't want to break in new gloves. They don't want to break in new skates. I mean, they have to, but they don't want to. It's once you get them set, just leave them alone. Let them go play. That's all. Like I always tell them, I can get you to the net, and I can get you on the ice, but then you got to use your God-given ability to do what you do.
Yeah. And back then, in the 90s, as far as sticks, I'm trying to remember what kind of sticks were they all wood?
Wood.
Yeah.
Yeah, wood.
So totally different than today, right?
Completely different.
Yeah. Maybe talk a little bit about the type of equipment that players played with then compared to now.
Oh, back then it's just all wood sticks.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it, $150 for a dozen sticks? All wood. Everybody used wood. Nobody used anything like it is now. Now sticks $450, $500. That outrageous.
How about skates?
Skates. You know what? Skates were more of a personal preference. All right. There's guys that use Bauer, guys that use CCM. But those reps at training camp, those reps would come in all the time. And I would just open the door to them. All they had to do is report to me afterwards. We'd have a coffee or go to dinner, and I'd find out the wants and needs of every individual player, because every individual player is different. And then we just go from there. But more or less the skates player, that's a personal touch that the players like. They take care of that. The rep will talk to them, then he'll come and talk to me.
And then as far as going back to the sticks, so there was a period of time, I don't know about the pros, but at least in the amateur space, where you could get a shaft and get a blade.
Yeah.
And replace the, you break a blade, but you still keep the shaft.
Yeah.
Was that also in NHL or no?
Yeah. Sidney Crosby had those.
Okay.
That's what Sid came with. When he came, that's what he had. He had a 2-piece.
Yeah. So it's funny because today I still have some old sticks and I have the 2-piece basically.
Yeah.
And
you just replaced the blade.
right. But it's like everybody else has 1 piece now.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I feel like I'm in some ways being made fun of because of my 2-piece.
Right. Right. You're back in the day.
Which is fine with me and no big deal there. But it's just kind of funny that it works for me. Some of the 1-piece sticks I don't even like. I like the 2-piece more than the one piece.
Yeah, I remember Brad Park had a 2-piece when I was in Detroit. But when I went to Pittsburgh, it was all wood.
Yeah.
Mario just used Coho sticks. That's it.
Yeah. So how long did you spend in with the Penguins?
18 years.
Okay. So 18 years. That's quite a career there. What?
It was being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. So over time, did you get more assistance with time or no? Or not? Really?
No. It took a while to get. Pittsburgh didn't have a lot of money. It took a while to finally, get an assistant, and same with the medical end of it. They finally got an assistant. Before, when we traveled, we just traveled with 3 of us. There's me, Skippy Thayer was the medical, and Johnny Walday was our strength conditioning coach. And that was it. That's all we had. Now when I look at teams, I talk to my friends that are in the NHL. They got 5 equipment guys. They got 5 medical guys. They got 3 strength coaches. It's ridiculous now.
Yeah.
But that's the way it is, because the wants and needs of the players are greater now.
Yeah, things change, things improve.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. What are some most memorable kind of stories or memories that you have of being in the NHL?
It'd have to be winning the Stanley Cup. 100%.
What was that like?
Absolutely fabulous. It was a dream.
Yeah.
It was a dream. It was a dream for me because a kid from Detroit. I remember when I was with Detroit, they had the Stanley Cup in Coble Hall, which is right next door to Joe Louis. And I walked over there one day just to see it. And I could see it from a distance, and they wanted like $30 to take a picture with it. I wasn't paying $30 to take a picture with it. I was just hoping maybe I'd get a chance one day. And then my chance came. Excuse me. And it was thrill of a lifetime.
Can you kind of recall the final game? How many games was there for
the first year we won 6 games.
Okay.
Against Minnesota.
What was that series like?
It was, I'll tell you, the first game we lost first game at home. We played in Pittsburgh. We lost the first game at home. And I remember walking off the ice because at Mellon Arena, the benches you crossed, the teams crossed. So our dressing room was on one side and the visiting team was on the other side. And I remember walking off the ice and I was just looking up in the balcony where all the cameras were, and I was thinking, I waited my whole career to get to this point, and we lost game 1, and it's devastating. It's devastating. And but then we bounced back, and we ended up winning the series, 6 games.
Who was the star of the...
Mario Lemieux,
Yeah.
Conn Smythe winner.
Yeah. Is he from France, or is it just his last name that's kind of... Or is he...
He's from Montreal.
Montreal. Okay, that's where I confuse it. Like,
Yeah.
French-Canadian.
Yes.
Okay. And then what was the second year like?
Second year, well, after winning it the first year, the guys that had never won a cup, every day they cried their eyes out, me included. You just cry your eyes out because you're so excited. And guys like Paul Coffey, who had won, I think, 3 already or 4 with Edmonton. Now he won another one with Pittsburgh. And Brian Trottier, who won 4 with the Islanders. Now he won another one with Pittsburgh. It's just like old hat to them. They were excited,
Yeah.
but not like that first one. That first one is just it's mind blowing. Let me tell you.
Yeah. The consecutive ones or the next
The
ones.
excitement is phenomenal. The excitement is phenomenal.
Yeah. So after that, like it says here in 2001, 2002, you were part of the Olympic
Yes.
team.
Yeah. Salt Lake City.
Yeah. So talk about that a little bit.
That was, that's something that I always wanted to do in my career if I was lucky enough to be picked. And it just so happened that year, the Salt Lake City, Craig Patrick was the GM of USA Hockey for that team, and Herbie Brooks was the coach of that team. Mm-hmm. So if you want to go back, there's the two guys, as I talked earlier. They were with the 1980 team, the Miracle team. Herbie was the coach. Craig was the assistant GM with that team and assistant coach. And here I was working with both these guys again, and it was when they brought me in, they sat me down, and, I didn't know why I was being called into the office, to be honest with you. And, Craig just said to me, he says, they offered me the job as the GM of the 2002 Olympic team. Herbie's going to be the coach, and we want you to be our equipment manager. I was more than excited.
So what was that like as far as
Olympics?
Olympics?
The Olympics are probably one of the greatest things you could ever work, because you have all the countries there, but a lot of the players. It's all the U.S. I have the USA team, so all those players that are U.S. born, all the best of the best. Now you got the best here, and I know those guys from the NHL, and then the European guys, I also know them from the NHL. So to me, I wasn't starstruck or anything like that. These guys were my friends. I had them before in other tournaments, and it was a great time. I remember every day I used to have a coffee with, God bless, Ivan Helenka. He was my coach in Pittsburgh at the time, and he was the coach of the Czech team with Jaromir Jagr. And every day he'd knock on the door, and we'd walk down the hall. He'd smoke a dart, and we'd have a coffee. We'd talk. And it was a great time, but once again we got to the gold medal game and we lost to Canada.
But so as far as, like you mentioned, the players, most of the players were from the NHL. They
Yes.
played for different countries depending on where they were from.
Correct.
That kind of thing. So NHL in some ways is in some form is a melting pot of the world, right? Like
Yes.
where you have players from all over the world just playing at the NHL.
Yes.
What was like most memorable thing about the Olympics?
It was something that, it was so intriguing to be there, to live in the Olympic Village, to see what it was like, to go through it. I mean, it was a thrill for me. I was lucky, very lucky. It's just too bad we lost the gold medal game to Canada. We got the silver medal. And the thing is, when they play that national anthem, and you look at those flags they're putting up there, when you win the gold medal, your flag is that much higher than the rest of them. It just ticks you off a little bit if you won the silver medal. And Mario played for me in Pittsburgh. There he was playing for Canada. It was that's what it was like. It was fun though. It was very enjoyable.
Yeah. So over time, you were at Pittsburgh Penguins, but then you moved to was it the Checkers?
Yes.
What was how did that come about? And
it came about. after 18 years in Pittsburgh, we didn't have a lot of money in Pittsburgh, and we didn't have a good team at the end. We drafted Sidney Crosby. I had him for a year. At the time, we had Sid, we had Fleury. Melkin hadn't come over yet. Melkin was drafted by Pittsburgh, but he was still in Russia. Letang, he was playing with our minor league team in Wilkes-Barre, so he wasn't in NHL yet. And they let Craig Patrick go, who was there I was there with them for 18 years. And then once that happens, it's a trickle-down effect. Mm-hmm. They just cleaned house. They let everybody go. I was lucky they took care of me financially, but I love Pittsburgh. I never wanted to leave Pittsburgh. But then that happened, and Ronnie Francis, good friend of mine, he was the assistant GM with Carolina. He called me, and they were moving a team from Albany, New York, to Charlotte, and he needed help. And I was with Ronnie. I had Ronnie for 2 years in Hartford and another 8 in Pittsburgh, 9 in Pittsburgh. So I spent a good amount of time with him. And he didn't want to hire a young kid. He wanted somebody with experience moving a new team into a city that I've never even been to. Mm-hmm. And he asked me if I would help him out, and I said, yeah, absolutely. So that's how I got here.
And the team that was moving from Albany, was that
the River Rats?
Okay. I was thinking of Syracuse Crunch. So Crunch still remained over there.
Yeah, they're still there.
Syracuse.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I lived in Rochester, New York for a long time before moving to Charlotte. So I would go to the Amherst game.
Yes.
Over there.
Yes.
And they would play Albany and Syracuse and all those AHL teams. It was kind of interesting. The last game I went to in Rochester, they played Crunch. Not Crunch, sorry, Checkers.
Really?
Yeah,
really?
So it's kind of like, because we were moving down here.
Yeah, that's how I got here.
Yeah. So moving kind of like to a lower level in hockey, what was that like, and what was your experience?
You know what? It didn't bother me at all. I just wanted to be accepted from the guys that worked in the American League. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to be accepted by them. I didn't want them to think a guy was coming in who was in the National Hockey League at the time. That would have been 26 years for me, and find this as degrading to me. It wasn't. It was a thrill, and I mean, it was a thrill and an honor to work with these guys. They were good guys. They were great guys, and they're my friends today as we speak. And I really enjoyed it. I really did. It was different. The travel was different. I mean, but here in Charlotte, we flew everywhere, so that wasn't bad. But I mean, the scheduling is tough. For what these guys go through, they don't get paid enough. In my book, they don't get paid enough at all. But they're great people, and they work hard, and they love the game, and that's so important. And, they come to the rink every day with a smile on their face. Man, after some of these teams busting 10 hours to get to a rink and then they're playing the next day, that's not easy.
Yeah. So other than what you just mentioned as far as pay, what are some other differences? Obviously, the skill level between NHL and AHL.
Yeah, well, the skill level is you could stand on a American League bench. Like when I was with Charlotte, you could stand there, and I remember distinctly one time we were playing Toronto, and it was the Marlies, and this kid came down the right side, and he fired a shot. He put it underneath the crossbar, and I looked at their bench was right next to me, and I looked at him, and I went like, who is this kid? Well, it was one of their star players that the Leafs drafted number 1 overall, and he was just playing, in the minors just to get experience. But, another kid, I can't remember the kid's name, but he is playing with Toronto now. Mm-hmm. But you get, how can I explain this? The talent level is completely different from the American League to the National League. I mean, those guys up there, they're there for a reason.
Yeah. What other differences are there between the two leagues?
Yeah, well, big one, the skill level is so much higher at the National League level. The skill level is unbelievable. I mean, you could just sit there and just watch a guy say at training camp. Let's use training camp. Training camp, you have 60 guys at camp. There'll be a team out there, and you'll look out there and you go, oh my God, who is that guy? Well, yeah, that guy is the guy that's going to be playing on your team, but the skill level is much greater up there.
And then usually like AHL teams are associated with an NHL team, and
Correct.
sometimes people or players get called up.
Right.
What's that process like?
The process is one day you get a phone call from your head coach, and he'll just say, come in my office. And you go in and you sit down with him. He just tells you, okay, this guy's leaving today. He's going to, let's say, Pittsburgh. He's going to Wilkes-Barre. And Wilkes-Barre is sending so-and-so to us. And that's the process. And as soon as,
So it's a two-way? It's like somebody coming down from NHL?
Sometimes,
going up?
sometimes it's a guy leaving your team, going there, and they're bringing a guy up from there to come down to you. Or sometimes it's a guy leaving who's getting traded, and another guy from another team is coming to you.
But most of the time it's like one-for-one swap kind of a thing?
Not all the time, no.
Okay.
No, I had one time in Detroit. We left to go to L.A. We traded 5 guys on the flight going to L.A. So when I got to L.A., 5 guys showed up from 5 different teams.
Wow. So recently being like a few years back, you've been involved in some ways with the 3-versus-3 league.
Yes.
Right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
3-on-3 is a unique game. It's just 3-on-3, just what it says, and it's just running time. And it's played if you take a shot and a goalie makes a save and it goes and hits the netting behind the net, everybody waits for it to come down. So there's no stoppage. You just play it. Wherever it goes, you play it. If there's a penalty, the only reason you use the penalty box is to put the pucks in the penalty box. That's the only reason. If there's a penalty, they put the puck at center ice. Everybody lines up at the far blue line. The guy taking the penalty shot, once he touches the puck, everybody chases him. Now, if he scores, he scores. If he misses, you play the puck. So
it's a penalty shot. There's no penalty like where you get
no
2 minutes
penalty.
or anything
No,
like that?
no penalty. No. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the players. It was a great time. Our staff was great people to work with. The guys that I worked with in the National Hockey League. And it was enjoyable. It really was. I mean, people liked it. It was fast. It was continuous. And, I hope it comes back next year.
Was it played at different locations, or was it played in?
Yeah, no, it's played. We played all over the United States. The first year we started in Vegas. We had a training camp in Vegas, and then we opened up the season in Vegas. And it was one time a week. It was always on a Saturday afternoon. And so you can play in Vegas, you can play in Boston. We play all over. Play in New York, play in New Jersey, play all over the place.
And how many teams were there?
There were, what'd we have? We had 8.
Okay.
8 teams.
Did it...
8 teams, and all the coaches were Hall of Famers. So for those guys coming into play, one team would be Grant Fuhr's team, Hall of Famer. I mean, Grant Fuhr, come on.
Yeah.
I loved having a coffee with him every morning. And then you had Eddie Johnson, who played with the Boston Bruins with Bobby Orr. He'd have a team. And Johnny LeClaire would have a team. Guy Carbonneau would have a team. Craig Patrick would have a team. Joey Mullen, Larry Murphy.
And this league, it went on for a couple years, or how many years was it?
What was it? 3 years, I believe it went. And then this year we didn't do it this year.
But I think they're thinking about doing it next year.
Next
right?
year, yes.
Okay.
I mean, we have everything ordered. We ordered everything for this past year. I don't know what happened. I mean, it's beyond my control, but everything that we ordered is sitting in Pittsburgh waiting.
Mm-hmm. And your role is still kind of like the equipment manager?
We had two guys, me and a good friend of mine, Doug Shear. We took care of the equipment end of it, and we just made sure everything made it. All the players brought their own stuff. We supplied them with pants, jerseys, and socks, gloves, helmet.
Mm-hmm. But you're like the equipment person for all teams in that
all
case.
Teams, yes.
Yeah.
All teams. No, we got say there's 4 teams playing on this Saturday, and then 4 teams will be playing on the next Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And, we have them all.
Did all 4 teams play in the same location?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's like whatever location is that week, everybody flies out to that location.
Yeah, those teams that are playing, that's where they're playing.
Okay.
So if they're playing in Pittsburgh, because we played in Pittsburgh, it'll be 4 teams or 8 teams playing in Pittsburgh, however they had it drawn up for that year.
Yeah. It sounds pretty cool. Like
It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Is the speed of those players similar to NHL? Like, what was that like?
There's guys that played in the NHL
Mm-hmm.
that played there. All right? There's more guys, let's put it this way. There's more guys that played in the American League that played in 3-on-3.
Mm-hmm. But there are some that came from NHL or ex-NHL or something like that.
Retired.
Okay. So it's almost like a professional men's league.
Exactly.
Kind of a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Play after NHL.
It was fun, though. It was a lot of fun. Craig Patrick was the GM of the league. I remember Craig calling me. I remember looking at that league before it started on the internet, and I'm reading about this league 3-on-3, and then I come to it says, and Craig Patrick is going to be the president of the league. I'm going, Craig Patrick, and my phone rang. And it was him. And he goes, Sevy, I'm working, you're working too. And he hung up. That was it.
Yeah. Really cool. So kind of going back to NHL and AHL, when you look at all of the players on whatever team you were a part of, like 10%, top 10% of the ones that were most experienced or had the best skill, and then everybody else, what was different about them compared to everybody else?
Well, besides their skill.
Right. I'm trying to kind of drive at like how did they acquire their skill? What were their habits like, or work ethic, or whatever it was?
They worked harder than anybody. Yeah, they worked harder than anybody. Sidney Crosby,
Mm-hmm.
He works harder than anybody. He works harder than anybody, and I mean that sincerely. You just watch him. He just works. His work ethic is just phenomenal. Mario Lemieux, same thing. All those top players, they're the top players for a reason. Sure they're skilled, sure they could really skate, sure they're very strong, but they're the type of player when you need a goal and it's late in the game and everybody's tired, they'll get the goal for you. That's just how it is. You just know it. You just know it.
Is their preparation or their conditioning or their workout or whatever?
They just have it in them that they're not going to be denied,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. I watched Mario play for 18 straight years. I had him. I watched him with 2-3 guys hanging on top of him, dragging him to the net, and he scores.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to call me down to the other bench and just look at me and go, "Ever see that one before, Sevy?" His will was unbelievable. I mean, Jaromir Jagr, his skill level, his strength is unbelievable. And that sets them above everybody.
Yeah. What was their mindset like as well?
Their mindset is they just wanted to win. They just wanted to win. And bottom line, whatever it took to win, they just wanted to win. Bottom line, that was it.
Did they have like a mindset of wanting to be the best of the best?
All the time.
Yeah.
Oh, all the time. Yeah, definitely. Mario, 100%. Absolutely. Back then it was, him and Gretzky.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it was. It's him and Gretzky. And, I'd go to war with my guy. I know that.
What about Gretzky? What was his mindset like?
Same way.
Same thing. Like, wanted to be the best.
I can't say that because I wasn't with him all the time. But talking to his equipment manager, it was the same way. The mindset was the same.
Mm-hmm.
Want to be the best. That's it. Bottom line.
What you mentioned a little bit about Wayne, like him being a nice or kind person on and off the ice. What was your experience like with these top players as far as on ice and off ice?
All those guys, I'll always say it, the best way I could probably put it is their parents brought them up on the right side of the tracks.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you say it in where I'm from. What it's saying is they did a phenomenal job bringing their kid up.
So what were some of the things that you would want to highlight?
Time for everybody. They got time for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you know what it's like trying to get into an arena, being Mario Lemieux, and you got 200 people outside and sign an autograph? And you know what happens? The bad part is, and same with Wayne, same with Sid, Mark Messier, all these guys. Same thing. They're trying to get somewhere. They have all these people want an autograph, and I understand that, and they understand that. But, there's a cutoff point when either you're going to be late going to work, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
And you don't sign that one autograph, and all of a sudden you're a bad guy. I saw it. I've seen it. So, but they always have time for everybody. Always.
Mm-hmm. What other qualities have you noticed in them?
They're good. They're good human beings. They're really good human beings. I mean, they have a life outside hockey, just like you do, I do, everybody. But they always make time. They don't shun anybody. They're not better than anybody. They're normal people. I mean, yeah, you see them on TV, but I see them on the other side. I see them in the dressing room. Yeah. I'm with them every day. I travel with them. I'm in a hotel. I'm having a drink with them. They're normal people. They're just normal people. They got a talent that God gave them, and man, they use it. Let me tell you.
Yeah. What's have you mentioned Sidney Crosby? What was your experience like seeing how he plays? I think you were there for 1 year with him.
1 year. I had Sid for one.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable. He's a great kid. I mean, to see him, how he's grown. I mean, he's just got a 1600th point. I saw him the other night. Phenomenal. I saw him get his first point.
Mm-hmm.
In New Jersey. And but talking to the people that work there, that I had, and now they're with Sid. He's just a phenomenal person. Just time for everybody. Once again, I know I say that and I repeat that, but that's the truth. That's how it is.
Have your paths crossed, or have you crossed paths with Ovechkin at all?
I remember the first time we played in Washington with Sid, mm-hmm. and he was with Washington at the time. That's the only time.
He seemed to be
talking to the people I know in Washington, same way.
Yeah,
he's the same way.
But he also, like, I don't know what his records are, and so
well, he's going to break.
To be pretty
he's going to break Wayne's goal record.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. He's close. I mean, and that's a phenomenal record. I don't even know what the number is, but it's astronomical. And he's on the verge of doing that. It's going to could be at the end of this year. But, I mean, that is quite an accomplishment. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I think...
because I didn't think anybody'd break that record.
Yeah. I think it's 894 goals that he scored and 2,857 points in his career.
That's amazing.
Yeah. When it comes to hockey, a lot of maybe people who don't follow hockey may not understand like the fighting aspect in hockey. What can you kind of explain that?
Well, hockey that more or less has gone out.
It has it.
Yeah, the fighting has more or less gone out. They're curtailing it, but it's before. I mean, when I was in Pittsburgh, we went and traded for like Marty McSorley, and that was Wayne's enforcer in L.A. And then we got him in Pittsburgh, and we needed him to more or less be there when, after people jumping on Mario's back all the time. And then it didn't work out, and we traded him back to L.A., but everybody had an enforcer back down. Edmonton, in their heyday, they had a guy by the name of Dave Semenko, toughest guy I've ever seen. All right? That was Wayne's guy. All right? That was Wayne's guy. He took care of Wayne's headaches, let me tell you. And nobody wanted to mess with him. That's just how it was. But then the game has changed the other way now. Now it's all speed and skill.
Okay.
The fighting aspect
Has it gone away?
has gone away.
Because I remember back in the 90s, it seemed to be like big back then. Even AHL
Oh, yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
people would come just for the fights.
Yeah, definitely.
Like me personally, I like hockey. I like to play it. I don't like the fighting aspect
Yeah,
of it.
it's more or less gone.
Yeah.
It's gone.
That's good to hear. What else would you want to share about your experience in hockey in general,
Hockey in general,
or life in general?
I could I can only say I was at the right place at the right time. When little kids ask me, or when I do like talks, and little kids want to know like how I started, and as we started this talk today, that's how I started. I started at the lowest of the low. I was, like I said, I knew how to turn on the washer and dryer and vacuum. That's what I knew. But then as it progressed, I saw something that I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed it. And the hours didn't bother me. They are long hours. But I always, would ask little kids, and doing a talk to them and their families about, they all want to know, like, how do they get to where I'm at instead of where I started? And then when I start explaining how I started, and I'd always would ask them, well, when you watch a game with the Penguins and the game is over, what do you see? And the little guys would always say, well, Mr. Sevy, we see you walking off the bench. I go, okay, that's good. That's good. But I go, all that stuff that they're wearing, all that stuff has to go in a dressing room, and it goes in a bag. And there's probably 6 trunks back there that I have to move to a truck. That truck takes it to the airport. So when that game is over, what do you guys do? They go, well, we got to go to bed. I go, good. That's what you should do. I go, well, I have to take that stuff to an airport to put it on a plane to fly it back to Pittsburgh. So when I get to Pittsburgh at 2 a.m, what are you guys doing? They go, we're sleeping. I go, well, I'm still up till 4 a.m. And then I got to be at practice at 8 o'clock. And then it changes. Then they see the different side of it. They don't just see we see you on TV. Then they see, well, it's a job. And that's what it is.
Right, this is work.
Yeah.
A lot of times people can't wait to retire, or they're like, the mindset is like, oh, okay, I want to make some money so that I can retire and do nothing, basically. But I feel like that's not the right mindset to have.
No. When I retired, I needed, when I came to Charlotte, I needed to win the Calder Cup to have all the trophies in the National Hockey League and the American League. And I needed to win a Calder Cup. And we did in 2019. So winning that Calder Cup, got me the Stanley Cup and the President's Trophy and things like that, silver medal in the Olympics. All that was great. But you know what? Retiring, to me, when you're a worker, retiring, it looks like it's great. But then I start skate sharpening, to keep me going. And you got to have something to do every day.
Right.
And that's how I look at it. I don't look at it as I just do nothing the whole day. You can't do that. I had to have something to do. And then when people started calling me about skate sharpening in Charlotte, all right, well, let's try this. And here I am 5 years later now, still doing it and loving it. I get to meet people like you and tell stories, and, they ask questions, and I enjoy it.
Yeah. I don't think we were meant to just do nothing. Like, it would be too boring. Like, life would cease. There'd be no point to the life, right?
Right.
Like, we got to do something.
Absolutely. I agree.
So maybe tell the audience a little bit more about yourself, as far as like anything you want to share from personal side.
Well, I have a skate sharpening business here in Charlotte. For anybody out there that has memorabilia from back in the day, that guys have retired from the sport and they just have stuff sitting in their basement, I work for a company out of New York called Leland's. We buy all memorabilia, Stanley Cup rings, Super Bowl rings, things like that. And the skate sharpening business has gone very well. So anybody that needs their skate sharpened here in Charlotte, I'm here.
Yeah, and if you want to leave a way for people to contact you, that would be probably good.
Yeah, you could. What would be the best way? You could email me at SEVE@Yahoo. Well, let's put it SEVELATIN@Yahoo.com, and I'll get back to you. And all you have to do is you can text me, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sounds
email,
good.
Text, whatever.
Yes, Steve, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your experiences.
Thank you for having me. Anytime.
Yeah, thanks.
Anytime.